I'm going to show you the best concealers for every type of look. I'm talking daytime, blemishes, dark circles for the underpainting technique, you name it. So let's get into it. Let's talk about the barely there look. Now for a barely there concealer finish, ultimately what we want is something which is going to give us a little bit of coverage, but isn't going to look obvious. It doesn't look cakey, and it just kind of like melts into the skin. Now the best concealer I have found for this is the Nude Sticks Cream Concealer. It's a fluid concealer which isn't too drippy, so it is more of a kind of fluid to cream finish. It also comes in like this tube here, so it's really easy to use. You can use this applicator easily to just apply it on certain areas. What I do like about this is it isn't drying. It doesn't just set so quickly. It kind of stays quite fluid, and you can set it with powder if you want to, but it does kind of take a little bit of time to set, and that's the good thing about it, which is why it doesn't look so heavy and like cakey on the skin. It's very hydrating for the skin. It does cover up any areas that you want, and the great thing is that you can like build it up as well. But if you apply a very small amount and use a brush to kind of blend it in, it gives you the most amazing barely there look. So even if you don't want to use a foundation, you just want to use a concealer wherever you want to use it, I would highly recommend this one. Let's talk about the daytime concealer. Now, what exactly is a daytime concealer? So a daytime concealer is something where you want that casual everyday look. You want something that's going to kind of cover up any kind of blemishes or darkness, give you that really nice flawless look, but not too flawless where it looks unreal. You want something which is quite natural looking, but it's just a really good daytime concealer. So the same way we look at clothes, like we want a casual day look, this is very similar to that. So you want something which is going to tick all the boxes, isn't going to look heavy, gives you the coverage, but also doesn't look like you're super cakey or anything like that. Now the one that I would recommend that I absolutely love is the Makeup by Mario Surreal Skin Awakening Concealer. This concealer is so good at brightening the areas that you've applied it on, but also it's quite a fluid concealer as well. So you can see here it's got an applicator as well. Most concealers do have this same kind of applicator. It's really easy to apply, and I do feel like this gives a really nice finish. It's just a good daytime concealer. I use this during the day a lot of the time because it isn't obvious to the person looking at me that I'm wearing a whole load of concealer, but it does give me a little bit more coverage as well than like a barely there concealer. This is really good at building it like up too, so you can keep layering it on if you want to. I like to kind of apply some, buff it in, and then sometimes if I do want a little bit more coverage because maybe my dark circles are a little bit worse today, then I kind of leave it for a second and then apply a little bit more, and it gives me the most amazing finish. It definitely does not look cakey. Guys, this is a great concealer if you just want a daytime look that doesn't look cakey, but kind of just gives you what you need basically from a daytime concealer. And don't forget that you can actually go for a concealer shade with any of these concealers that I show you. You can go for a concealer shade which is very close to your skin tone if you do want to kind of like wear it without a foundation, or you can go for one which is a little bit lighter than your skin tone if you're wearing it with a foundation. You also want it to kind of brighten the under eye area. That goes for any concealer, to be honest, but this is a really, really good concealer. Next is the Evening Glam Concealer. This concealer is something which kind of gives you that really nice coverage, and I'd say that it's perfect for evening, because I feel like for during the day, it can maybe be a little bit too much, but it gives you the most insane flawless finish. And another thing I really love about this is because it's such amazing coverage, it's really easy to blend in too. So you're not going to have any trouble with this looking kind of like too heavy on the skin or drying too quickly. This is the Hourglass Vanish Concealer, and it comes like this. Again, another applicator, like sponge tip applicator. I'd say this is kind of a, I'd say not so fluid texture. It's more of a kind of, well, it is fluid, but it's quite thick fluid, if that makes sense. You literally, one swipe of this, that's all you need is one swipe of this, and it covers literally anything. This will cover everything. I just feel like for the evening, this is such a good concealer, because I would say this also acts like a foundation. Like if you don't want to use foundation, you could very easily use this as just what you need on the face, and that's it. Because if this same texture was in a foundation bottle, I wouldn't know the difference. I genuinely wouldn't, because I feel like this is basically like a kind of full coverage foundation. So that's the great thing about it. It's like a full coverage foundation, but in a concealer, like in concealer packaging, because it still covers everything up, but I don't necessarily need a foundation on top if I don't want to. So you can still use a foundation with this, but obviously bear in mind then it's going to be a lot heavier. So I'd use a lighter kind of coverage foundation. This genuinely is an amazing foundation for the evening, because I feel like, you know, in the evening time, it's a little bit darker, so you can get away with a little bit more makeup. This is just perfect for it. It's super easy to blend in. Guys, like, this is a dream to blend into the skin. So now let's talk about underpainting. So what is underpainting? Underpainting is when you apply your concealer, your cream blush, your cream bronzer, or cream contour, everything cream first after your skincare, after your primer, and then you would apply some foundation on top. You can't just use any kind of concealer for this, because some concealers are going to be a little bit too heavy. Some concealers are not going to work so great as like contouring as well. So what I'm talking about is using the right concealer that gives you the coverage, and you can build up if you want to, but also you can use the other shades, like a darker shade, like a much darker shade, to contour your face with it too. So that would be the NARS Creamy Radiant Concealer. I think it's Radiant Creamy Concealer, but this is the concealer I would recommend. I alternate between a few different concealers for underpainting, but I would say if you are someone who doesn't want like crazy coverage, then I would use something like this, because this is a really easy concealer to use. I hear a lot of people saying that they don't like the Tarte Shape Tape for underpainting, and I understand why. I personally love it for underpainting too, but I feel like this is a great all-round concealer for using as your concealer and sculpting underneath your foundation when you're underpainting, because this I could use to cover up dark circles, to like brighten certain areas, but then I can also use a darker shade, which I use the Cocoa shade, which basically you can use to sculpt certain areas, and it is an amazing fluid concealer to blend in. This blends into the skin so seamlessly, really easy to blend in, and doesn't look patchy at all. I feel like the perfect concealer for underpainting is hands down the NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer. So dark circles. Dark circles are basically when we have a lot of darkness on the under eye area. We all know what they are, because I feel like a lot of us do suffer with that, myself included. And the one concealer I can rely on without fail is my Tarte Shape Tape Concealer, because without fail, no matter how bad my under eye dark circles are looking, this will cover it up. This is the most amazing concealer in my eyes. Like, in my opinion, this is just an amazing concealer. I don't know how else to say it. It's such a good concealer. It blends really easily. It's self-setting, which, even though I love that term, I still do kind of set my concealer and foundation afterwards with powder, because I just feel like no matter what, you're gonna need to use powder in order for it to last all day. But this is great because it isn't so fluid that it kind of moves around everywhere when you're blending it. It stays in place. So if I apply this strategically in certain areas, like say here and there, and I buff it in, it's not going to just lift off half of the product onto my sponge. It will stay put, but also it won't kind of like spread around everywhere. It will stay where I need it to stay. And that's another reason I love this concealer. And I've just never ever applied this on dark circles and felt like it doesn't cover it. It just, without fail, it will always cover my dark circles. Let's talk about blemishes. Now, blemishes are generally when you have that kind of spot somewhere, or it's a little bit dark in certain areas, or, you know, maybe it's a scar from a spot that you've had. And sometimes, I'll be honest, using fluid concealers such as the ones I've already spoken about can be quite difficult at covering those things, because it's too fluid. Basically, you need something which is a little bit more opaque, a little bit more pasty in texture, for you to be able to really cover those areas and almost spot conceal. So spot conceal basically is where you're using a brush to help conceal certain blemishes in certain areas. I personally love using like lip brushes for this. So obviously a lip brush that you haven't used on your lips, so a fresh one, and use that as your concealer application to help cover up certain areas. So you can use any lip brush. This is a Zoeva one. I don't actually know what the number is, it's just the Zoeva lip brush. And the concealer that I love for this is the NARS Soft Matte Concealer, because I feel like it's an opaque concealer. So it comes in a little tub like this, little pot, a screw top, and then you've got the opaque concealer there. This is a great concealer to cover up spots or blemishes, because if you're working with certain areas, it's great, because the difference is when you're using a fluid concealer, it can end up kind of just you know, it just comes off very easily when you start blending it in, because if you apply a little dot, it's going to be too much and it's going to look obvious unless you're using the exact color of your skin. With a opaque concealer, working on blemishes is a little bit easier because it kind of stays put. So if I were to kind of like lift off some of the concealer here and put it on the brush and basically try applying it to the skin, it doesn't just go everywhere because it's so fluid. It's very easy. So all I would do is basically paint it over the blemish, and then I would use my finger to pat on top to just get rid of that, you know, the edges that look so obvious. So it's a very easy texture to use. And the great thing about this particular concealer for blemishes is that it is really good coverage too. So once you've applied it, it kind of stays put. It doesn't move around because it's not a fluid concealer. So it kind of stays put, and then once you've set it with powder, it works like magic and it looks like magic. So there's quite a variety there in terms of like the type of finish or technique that you're using concealer for. And I feel like I've kind of covered most of them. I would say if there is any that I've missed, please do let me know in the comments section below. But I do feel like I use all of these different kind of techniques or finishes that I'm talking about, either on myself or on clients, and I do find that these are the best concealers for those kind of things. You've seen me use Tarte Shape Tape most of the time, and honestly that is generally my go-to concealer. The odd time I will use kind of like NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer on my under eyes, but it really depends on how bad my dark circles are. And I do like to mix things up a lot of the time when I'm filming, just for you guys in general, because I want you guys to see me use other products other than just what I generally use personally on myself day to day. At least that way you can see what they look like on, and I give you my honest opinion about how it blends, and you can see how it blends yourself because I do everything in front of the camera anyway. But yeah, I really do hope that you've kind of like seen what kind of finishes work well with different techniques or finishes. Again, like I said, you can use all of these concealers in a very, very similar color to your skin tone, so go as close as you can to your skin tone, and you won't necessarily have to use a foundation with it. But if you do want to go for a concealer which is a little bit lighter than your skin tone, that's going to help to brighten the area too, in which case you're better off using a foundation as well, because then it kind of like tones everything down and it just adds a veil of color and just ties everything up together, and everything meshes very well together then. So I really do hope that has made sense and it's given you a bit of a push in the right direction with what concealer you should be using for what type of finish. Don't forget, I do have an online publication called the Beauty Breakfast Club. I would love to see you guys there because it's a really cool online publication where we cover things like beauty, style, self, a lot of topics that maybe people don't talk about. You know, hopefully a lot of it does seem to resonate with a lot of my viewers from here too. So if you head on over, you're gonna love it. The link is in my description. We have 3 newsletters a week, so it's very kind of consistent. I've never missed it, not once. So I think you're gonna love that over there too. And don't forget, I do have my vlog channel where you see behind the scenes. Like, what do I get up to when I go to events? What are events like? I went to a Shiseido event the other day and it's all been vlogged. It's going up on my channel very soon. So every Sunday I have a new vlog out and it shows you what I've been getting up to during the week, and it gives you just a bit more of an insight into my life. Yeah, so head on over there too. That's NINAUBHI Vlogs. I think you're gonna love that channel too. It's a bit more kind of fun and chatty, and yeah, sending you loads of love wherever you are in the world. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell button so that you don't miss any of my future videos. Until the next video, take care and I'll see you soon.